So with this, we start with the first session of today's medical conference, and it is on the moral principles that govern the practice of medicine, and the topic goes as medical ethics and overview. So to speak on this topic, I would like to invite speaker Dr. Somnath Noshkar sir, who is a consultant physician and assistant professor from SSKM Hospital, and he is also the executive committee member of our Diabetes Study Society. To chair this particular session, I would like to invite Dr. Mridul Bera sir, who everybody knows him, who is a consultant physician and diabetologist and also treasurer to Howrah Diabetes Study Society, and along with him, another person whom everybody knows, Dr. Guru Prasad Bhattacharya, who is assistant secretary to Howrah Diabetes Study Society and a consultant physician and diabetologist. I welcome the speaker and the chairpersons for the first medical session of the 8th National Conference of Howrah Diabetes Study Society. I welcome one and all, and a very good morning once again.
Good morning to all. Let us start. Conference is second. Let's start. The second day's first session starts with medical ethics, which will be delivered by Dr. Somnath Noshkar, who is the consultant in the medicine department of SSKM Hospital, and is a very speech-speaking person. And he has been deployed with the task of delivering this important task of medical ethics, which is now reformed and medical consulting. Somnath, you will get started.
Thank you, Chairperson sirs, Dr. Guru Prasad Bhattacharya and Dr. Mridul Bera, who are very close to me, my beloved seniors, and a very good morning to all the distinguished delegates on the dais, off the dais. So today we'll discuss about a topic which is a bit off-bit, the thing which has been discussed since long, from yesterday. So what is ethics per se? What is it? So we know everything is known to us, and it's a very big topic. It needs a whole day-long session. But as an overview, so what is it? So it's a word which is derived from a Greek word, means that word is ethikos, and that is derived from the root word is ethos. That means the characters. So basically it deals with the code of conduct to guide our behavior. So what is it? Now, in true sense, it may not be so simple in every time. So there's no hard and fast right and wrong thing. It changes according to the situation. So I can start it with a small story. Like there were two railway tracks, through one of which regularly train passes by, and another track is abandoned. Now, in one morning, when a train was passing, the driver suddenly noticed that on the track which is regularly used, on that track, some children are playing. And on the track which is abandoned, one child is playing on that track. Now, what is the decision of the driver or the person who is controlling that? So, should he drive on that track which is regularly used and leading to the death of several children, or will go to the other track which is not used and but lead to death of one child, maybe who is not at fault? So anyway, so the decision depends upon different situations. So and we have seen different situations in royal families, that how they have done their research on poor citizens or their servants, like that. So what is ethics? Moral code of conduct defining right and wrong and thereby guiding behavior in civil society. Now derives from value system of individuals and communities, deals with what is good and bad, and with moral duty and obligation. Now, frequently, we use interchangeably ethics, morality, religion, or law, but actually they are not synonymous. There's some differences between them. While, like, the morality is guided by the social opinion, the religion is guided by the faith, the law depends upon the legislation, while the ethics is guided by the professional opinion. Again, the motive or the aim for the morality is benevolence. For religion, it's spirituality. For law, it's liability. And while for ethics, it's accountability. So there are different milestones in the evolution of bioethics. It starts way back in 1600 BC. The code of conduct is written in Charak Samhita. So the oath by Charaka. And in 600 AD, that is Hippocratic oath, which perhaps we all have taken during our convocation. But now NMC is recommending that we should pledge with the Charak Samhita. So that's a long evolution. Now, ethics and research. So according to Celsius, he said that it is not cruel to inflict on a few criminal sufferings which may benefit multitudes of innocent people through all centuries. So there, through ages, there was a motive of justifying the effects, the activity, that it is fair to suffer some person for the greater benefit of others. There's a common saying that everything is fair in love and war. But for medical ethics, it's not so. It's not so. For research, it's not so. So let's have some look on the different types of research. So this is a famous experiment by Dr. Jenner. He inoculated the fluid, the aspirates from cowpox pustule on an 8-year-old boy, James Phipp. And the result made history. But did it follow the codes of ethics? Perhaps no. There was no informed consent, no randomization, and only one sample size. And what was the reaction to Jenner? The fear was so high. This is a painting, famous painting by a British satirist, James Gillray, who depicted the fear of side effects in his picture. So after taking the vaccine, the cows are coming out from different parts of the body, from eyes, from nose, from mouth, from whatnot. So, but still these things happen, and it made a history. Anyway, so there was very famous or infamous Nazi experiments on prisoners of war. So it's shocking, it's terrifying what they did. So this is from Nuremberg trial. So this is called the freezing experiment. So this was done in Dachau concentration camp. The war victims were made to sit on a ice cool water to freeze, to see the effects of freezing. And some were made to stand outside at a freezing temperature, at a sub-zero temperature, to see the effect of freezing. And then they were rewarmed with some, again, weird procedures, like throwing them into boiled water, maybe by sexual arousal. Very, very terrifying and concepts were there. Now, another experiment was to see the effect of high altitude. The war victims were made to stand in a very low pressure, simulating the ambience of around 68,000 feet height, to see the effects of on the pilots, what is happening. So in most of the cases, the victims died, and who survived, the investigator made vivisection of their brain, and they were murdered eventually. So these were the things. This is another experiment on children. So all the vulnerable age groups. And the end point of all these experiments was death. So up to that period, they were experimented, and all these results were noted and published. So after that, the Nuremberg Code came. They defended in different way. But then uh, the Nuremberg Code came in 1947, and in 1897 there was Code of Medical Ethics by American Medical Association. And in Nuremberg Code, the most important thing was voluntary or informed consent, which must be obtained, and this is the investigator's responsibility. So, the patient, the study participants need to know the things, the details of the research. So, there are two parts. One is patient information sheet, where all the details has to be there, and another thing is the consent of the patient. So, after knowing all these things, the patient has to give the consent. So, this is another infamous experiment of Willowbrook hepatitis study. It was conducted at Willowbrook State School for Children with Mental Retardation. They were given milkshake laced with hepatitis virus or injected hepatitis virus. And the saddest part is that the guardians were told that study was for prevention of hepatitis. So there was no full disclosure, actually false disclosure, indirect coercion to the vulnerable groups. So all these things were there. And after that, there is a famous, that is Declaration of Helsinki in 1964. It was adopted by the 18th World Medical Assembly. And there were several revisions after that, and the final revision came in 2013 at Brazil. There are 32 principles, and among that, one important thing is that study protocol. Before every study, there should be a study protocol that has to be submitted to the ethics committee and has to be approved. This is another infamous study, Tuskegee syphilis study. It was a medical research project conducted by the US Public Health Service, examined the natural course of untreated syphilis in black American men. It was, the study was for 40 years. It started with 600 black American men, and there was 28 deaths, 100 cases of disability, and 19 cases of congenital syphilis. So again, the study was done on vulnerable subjects. There was lack of informed consent, no benefits to the subjects. So this leads to the whistleblowing, and in 1997, there was apology from the then President Bill Clinton on behalf of the American people to Herman Shaw, whose age was 94 at that time, who was a Tuskegee syphilis study victim. Now, what is bioethics? We have already discussed a systematic study of moral dimensions, including moral vision, decision, conduct, and policy of the life science and healthcare, employing a variety of ethical methodologies in an interdisciplinary settings. So, few issues. Ethics in physician-patient relationship. There's patient's rights versus physician's privilege, negligence, malpractice. Ethics at the beginning and end of life, like assisted reproduction technology, genetic engineering, euthanasia, which is not legal in India. Now, biomedical research ethics, what should be the role of sponsor, investigators, subject or regulator? Is there any conflict of interest? Informed consent is a must. And compensation for trial-related injury, but there should be no incentive. Now, some basic terminology. So, like research, it is defined as any form of disciplined inquiry that aims to contribute to a body of knowledge or theory. And the research ethics refers to the moral principles guiding research from its inception through to the completion and publication of results and beyond. It's not that ethics applies to only at the beginning or during the study. It holds true, and it should be applied after that also, even after the publication of the results. Now, human participants are not only living persons, but also cadaver and any part of the human body. Now, these are the 4 basic pillars of bioethics: autonomy and respect, which was not there in the infamous Nazi experiments, beneficence, so to do benefit to the to the mankind, and most important is non-maleficence, so do no harm. This is the basic guideline. Confidentiality and privacy should be maintained, and there should be justice and fairness, and on top of that, there should be truth and integrity. So these are some national and international guidelines, among which there is Declaration of Helsinki, ICMR guideline for India. Now, research ethics, it's a comparatively new discipline. Bioethics education is lacking in the standard curriculum. Ethics committee is unknown to most of the people, or maybe rudimentary in many of the centers. Informed consent, there are some limitations, like if the people are illiterate, and there's too many languages in India, and poor awareness is always a barrier. So existing national guidelines in India, IMSA Code of Medical Ethics, and most important, the ICMR guidelines. There is guidelines by GCP, Good Clinical Practice. Now, what is the expectation? All institutions in the country which carry out any form of biomedical research involving human beings should follow the ICMR guidelines in letter and spirit to protect safety and well-being of all individuals. So this is the resource. So to conclude, we quoted a famous stanza from Kobigor Rabindranath. So it says that Boshanto tumi eshecho hethay বুঝি হলো পথ ভুল এলে যদি তবে জীর্ণ শাখায় একটি ফুটাও ফুল. So ethics is like spring which can bloom flowers in the dying branches. So it's like spring, it's like oasis in human civilization. Thank you all.
Thank you, Somnath, for your resourceful deliberations. Now, we do not know about the medical ethics, most of us, because the ethics is definitely is an important part of it. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Thank you, Somnath, for your resourceful deliberation of the medical ethics. Now, the ethics is an integral part of our life, and definitely not only in medicine, but in also in our day-to-day life, and also, so particularly we do not, everyone probably do not know about the medical ethics in total, but you had definitely give some points about what is the medical ethics, how it comes. So, any question from the audience?
Oh, evening microphone.
Hello. Thank you for your nice deliberation. I have two small questions. Number one, in case of the observational study, is it also important to take the ethics written consent from the patients, like the interventional studies? And number two is that in the written consent, you have mentioned that you have to take or any person who is doing the research have to take the written consent from the patients.
So much echo is happening, I cannot hear.
It is equally important in the observational study. Fine. Number two is that in the case of the written consent, if the patient is illiterate or he or she knows the language which is unknown to the researcher. Suppose the patient knows only Urdu and the researcher does not know the Urdu, and the written consent also is in either English or Bengali or Hindi. So what would be the consequences? The first thing is the researchers has to explain all the points in patient's own language. But if there is a language discrepancy between them, So what is the, it should be proceeded, and what should be the next step to be done?
Yes. So these are the challenges, but the issue is that if the patient is illiterate, one option is there that there should be a witness. And the patient gives thumb impression, everything has to be explained to the patient, and after that he will give thumb impression, and with the presence of a witness he will sign who is literate. This is one thing. And another thing is that if there is language barrier, if the person does not understand this language, so the problem is that then how the researcher, forget about the informed consent, how he can do the research, how he can communicate with the patient. So in that case, usually there should be some person who understands the language so that the research can be completed. So usually the participants, according to the language of the participants, the informed consent has to be translated in different languages. So we anticipate that this many languages are there, and that the informed consent has to be translated in all those languages, usually, on which the participants can understand.
Thank you.
That's not known to me. Maybe artificial intelligence is growing. Yes. Maybe at some time, but till now it's not that. Okay. Thank you.
If there is no question, I'll end up the session because we are running short of time. Okay.